Hello, Getting to Maybe Selection Committee. My name is Vanessa Paesani, and I'm based in Moncton, New Brunswick, over here in the beautiful East Coast. And we are lucky to be enjoying some very mild weather today, although we have some snow. It is late January, so very unseasonably warm, but I suppose we will count our blessings in that. I want to take the first few minutes to tell you a bit about myself and what I do. I help people and organizations transition into their desired future. And so, how do I do that? At its simplest, it's about remaining curious. I've had a diverse career rooted in science and education. My background in science has helped me understand how to build hypotheses and experiments, while my background in education helps remind me that nothing can happen without people. I've had the opportunity to travel to 5 continents. I've worked locally and internationally. I've helped build a charity focused on energy and environmental education, from literally starting in a garage to being a province-wide institution that is currently supported by key stakeholders where I live in New Brunswick. I've helped a long-running music festival through a key transition, and I've helped a youth leadership organization celebrate its accomplishments and wrap up 10 years of impact. So those have been some of my career highlights to date. And what all of these have in common is great people who were moving to greater futures and greater impact. All that they needed was a guide to help get them there. And so that's how I've always seen consulting, as I come in as a guide and as a coach, and I never come in with the answer, but more of someone to help steer the process and the thinking, and someone who's going to remain curious throughout the process. So for me, my real passion is helping guide both people and organizations into their desired future. And as I think about some of the systems that I'm working to impact, I suppose, it would be the systems of what I broadly call inclusivity. And so for me, the first one is gender. And so I'd like to live in a future where gender doesn't restrict opportunity for anyone, both from a career or a personal point of view. I'd also love to see Atlantic Canada become more prosperous and more diverse, more inclusive, and really be a place where people can live their values. And I will say that I think that we're well on our way to that, but like any change, it takes time. And so as I think about some of my biggest takeaways of I guess from working in systems is the internal lesson of patience. And I think the older I get, the more patience I have. I still want to see that change and see change in my lifetime. And I also want to know that I've been able to contribute to a part of it. Though I also recognize the wisdom that things take time, and sometimes time is multiple generations, and that's okay. And so how do I internally get okay with knowing what my impact is, holding myself to a very high standard, as well as holding others to a high standard, while also being patient and wise and understanding that things take time, which is certainly something that I don't feel like I have figured out, but is a practice that I've continued to incorporate into my work. As I think about what I'd be hoping to get out of the Getting to Maybe residency, and the change in perspective and perception that I'd be hoping to make, it's really about connecting with other like-minded people, but also people who come from very different backgrounds, very different work, very different perspectives, so that they're able to help broaden my own and broaden what I'm thinking about in terms of perspective and impact. Anytime that I've had the chance to work with people who are also passionate but very different is when I found I've been able to shift my thinking in really meaningful ways and create more impact both for myself and others. I was also intrigued on the webinar when you folks talked about Indigenous ways of knowing and land-based learning. And so that's something I've been thinking a lot more about over the last, I'd say, couple of years. In particular, this past June, my immediate family and I went back to visit the place where my dad was born, which is a small abandoned village in the mountains outside of Teramo, Italy. And it's been interesting to reflect on because my father comes from a blue-collar background and I studied science. And so one of those things that I've learned over and over again is some of the things that I had discredited that he had told me. Science has now come to prove, some of those things being like, I've been reading a lot about longevity lately, and some of the most meaningful research suggests that the best things you can do for longevity are have good relationships, not eat too much, and be active, which, honestly feels like generational indigenous knowledge that we've all had and we seem to have forgotten for some reason. And so as I think about some of those like indigenous ways of knowing and learning from the land and what's around us, I think there's a lot of wisdom there that helps us get out of ego and really start to make sense of things so that we're able to create these better futures together. And so that's really what I'd be hoping to get out of this leadership residency through and helping me get to maybe. It's like, what does maybe mean for me in making change both in gender inclusivity and really helping Atlantic Canada thrive by connecting with people from across the country, as well as the people that will guide us through this learning. It would be a true honor to be part of this cohort in this residency, and either way, thank you for your time in reviewing my application, and I sincerely look forward to hearing from you. Have a great day, or evening, or whatever time it is when you're watching this.